Well, hello and welcome back to the second edition of Almost Live in LAX. We're here to give you the news that you can use by students that you can trust. Sit tight, it's going to be a good show. We'll be right back.
Almost Live in LAX, a new show for the students, by the students, where we bring the truth to UWL every Tuesday. With news from around the world, and right here in the Cross. With information you can use and news to be proud of. Stay tuned because Almost Live in LAX is coming up next.
Hello and welcome back to Almost Live in LAX. I'm Amber Meyer.
I'm Peter Lenz.
And I'm Lindsay Zess.
All right, now let's get started with the first local story. So, La Crescent dairy farmer Rick Johnson is facing an uncertain future in light of Canada's newly imposed trade regulation. Johnson and his family received a letter Monday stating that their current processor, Grassland Dairy Products, will no longer be accepting their milk due to the new trade regulation. The new regulation disbands Canada's need for imported American dairy products, causing dairy processors to cut farms from business. Johnson, saddled with 125 dairy cows, produces over 10,000 pounds of milk each day. If the milk cannot be processed, Johnson and his family make no profit and their farm will go under within the week, forcing them to liquidate. Grassland Dairy Products cut 75 farms from Minnesota and Wisconsin. Johnson states that he and his family have called around 100 processors and not one can pick up his farm. After 4 generations of farming in the Johnson family, Rick Johnson fears that this new regulation could spell the end of his family business. I don't know if you guys have heard too much about this or who really knows this, but I come from a family of farmers, dairy farmers actually to be exact, and I'm also a 4th generation. I'm not taking over the farm or anything, but 4th generation of the farming business. And so when I heard about the whole new regulation coming, in from Canada and how it's affecting local dairy farmers, the first thing I did was call my parents, and I was like, oh my God, have we gotten a letter? Like, what's going on? Like, you have to make sure you tell me if we do. But it really hits home. And I don't know if you guys know much about it?
A little bit.
I read the article that was on WXOW.
Yeah, so basically, for those that don't know, the new regulation is supposed to kind of booster Canadian, economics and kind of focus more on bringing consumers to buy their local products, which is kind of there's a sense of irony in it because, we as Americans are yeah, we should always buy American made and buy our own local products. But then when another country's hey, we're going to stop buying your, imports because we want to buy our own local stuff, then we're oh my God, but our economy, so it's a double-edged sword, while I fear for people that I really care about and people that are, kind of in my agricultural culture. I also understand why they're doing it, but it's a hard time because we don't have anywhere to send our products, and milk goes bad fast, so if you don't sell it, you're losing profit.
Especially in America's Dairyland. What is America's Dairyland if we can't produce as much dairy?
I know, right?
How many pounds a day of milk did they produce?
Over 10,000 pounds, and they milk 125 cows. My family actually milks 250 cows.
Ooh.
And so luckily the company that we're through ships to more local dairy processors, cheese factories and that kind of stuff. But this company, Grassland Dairy Products, they ship to places like Canada and whatnot. And so it's really causing them to fall on hard times, But I do really wish them the best. I completely understand what they're going through,
Absolutely.
Well, hey, hopefully things start to turn up for them. Well, let's move on to our next story then. So, big news for all of you viewers out there that really enjoy some fresh air and some shade on a nice hot day, because La Crescent, Minnesota, right across the river, has just earned the right to be called Tree City, USA. Now, the city claims this title, and they also claim the title of Apple Capital of the Minnesota over there. And this title just adds to their accolades. The designation is accomplished by achieving the 4 core ordinances that have been set forth to get this title. A task that La Crescent found easy, already doing 3 of the ordinances without even trying, just needing the 4th of establishing an Arbor Day in their city. So now, according to the city administrator, the only one that they needed was that, and now this is scheduled for Friday. So on Friday is going to be the first ever Arbor Day in La Crescent. So it's going to be a pretty big day. I was very excited to read about La Crescent getting the title of Tree City USA because there are over, let's see, I have the number around here, 3,000 other communities that have received the title of Tree City USA. So it's pretty cool to know that we are joining the ranks of people that are kind of doing their best to increase the knowledge of kind of the good that trees do on the environment. A couple other of those ordinances that they needed to do that they already had done were, number one is establish a tree board. So they have a board in the city council of La Crescent that actually worries about kind of the amount of trees that they have on, all the trees that maybe get cut down, replacing those, keeping the number of trees around. They have a tree care ordinance, so make sure all the different building plans and things like that will make sure that there's still a lot of green space, a lot of leaves and good stuff like that. And as well as a community forestry program budget of at least $2 per capita. So that really depends on the size of the city. So certain cities might have it a little bit tougher to get that title of Tree City USA, but La Crescent did it. They've got the per capita, and then since they just have Arbor Day coming up on Friday, we've done it all. So it's pretty exciting. Tree City USA, right across the river.
I like
That
it.
is exciting. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't they on the edge of like a state forest or like a national forest or something like that, like some type of national park?
I think that you're correct, and I think
Yeah.
that might also play in a part of the reason
probably does.
why they love those trees.
I know they also have things like what they do, Apple Fest in La Crescent, I want to say.
I went to that, yes.
Yeah, I actually did a shoot for that. But yeah, they really go absolutely crazy with Apple Fest. I'm excited to see what they do, you know, now being Tree City USA. I'm sure they'll fully embrace it.
Right. It's kind of interesting being from Wisconsin. I feel like sometimes we take a lot of the nature that we have around us for granted.
Yeah.
When I've spent some time other places, it was really hard to go get a hike in and go get some nature. But hey, don't take that for granted.
Yeah.
Tree City USA, go spend some time over there.
Awesome. Thanks, Peter. So our last local story, a little harsher story. La Crosse police say that a Facebook feud and rant on the social media site led to a shooting on State Street last Monday afternoon. The shooting happened around 4:43 p.m. in the 1000 block on State Street. When officers arrived, 2 vehicles had fled the scene, and investigators found out that the target of the shooting was 19-year-old Monica Thompson, who also fled the scene. Now, shots were fired, but no one was hit by any gunfire. And about 20 minutes later, police found the 2 vehicles at 1300 Market Street, and the 4 people were taken into custody. At the time of the arrests, police found 2 handguns, marijuana, cash, and illegal prescription drugs. All 4 suspects were being held in the La Crosse County Jail, awaiting charges, and earlier Tuesday morning, all 4 were charged with the party to the crime of attempted first-degree intentional homicide. On Monday, La Crosse police conducted a traffic stop and arrested Thompson on a felony bail jumping, disorderly conduct, and threatening to kill a man the day before the shooting on State Street. Now, Thompson was released on a $5,000 signature bond, and her preliminary hearing is scheduled for next week. It's a little scary. I live around there.
Yeah, that's a tough thing to read about here. I mean, right here in La Crosse.
Yeah. I mean, I literally live a block away from this, you know, and I can't imagine how I didn't even hear it. You know what I mean? But I live
Something
so
like
close.
that. Yeah. I saw footage from it, you know, and they had a lot of cop cars there. They had dogs there, you know, the canine unit and stuff. And to think that from State Street to Market Street, that's kind of a hike over there, you know. So for that to be going on, you know, in the general La Crosse area, it's a little scary, but luckily it turned out okay. Everybody.
It also was a pretty good peace of mind to know that the police did respond as fast
Absolutely.
as
Yeah,
they
within 20
did.
minutes. Like, that's impressive.
Yeah.
I know. I hear a lot of noises and things like that, and I
Sure.
think could possibly be a gunshot. So it's
I
nice
think
to
that
know.
too all the time.
They must have some ways to decipher through that to make sure that we're staying nice and safe. Well, hey, unfortunately, I ran in on some negative news, but hey, we've got a lot more good stuff, good stories for you later on in the show. So stay tuned.
Hi, I'm Ike. I love to play and have fun, as well as cuddle when I get tired.
Hi, I'm Diva. I'm a 1.5-year-old Hound Shepherd mix. I'm happy, affectionate, and energetic. Anyone want to play?
Hi, I'm Mila. I'm pretty chill and I love snuggles and head rubs. I'd like to find a relaxing home and caring family.
Hey guys, I'm Rhett. I'm a 2-year-old Shepherd Pit Bull mix and I'm looking for an active owner that I can run with.
To find out more about adoption for these pets or others, contact the Cooley Region Humane Society at 781-4014.
Well, here at Almost Live in LAX, we do our best to connect with our fellow students and raise their awareness for the topics that affect them most. This week, in an effort to connect with students, we sent an Almost Live crew into campus to find out what students are actually concerned about and what they could benefit from actually learning a little bit about those topics. Now, responses consisted of United Airlines, North Korea, and a lot about the recent conflict with Syria. First off, let's hear from some students about their concerns regarding Syria.
Lately, I've just been following what's going on over in Syria. I know with the recent chemical attacks, Trump decided to release some attacks over there. I think it's just important to follow what's going on over there because it will be our troops that are being sent over there, and it's important to know what our troops over there will be fighting for and our position in this fight.
So recently in the news, I've heard about Trump's mother of all bombs, or his mega bomb, and I don't know too much about it except for that it's not really the mother of all bombs, and it's just a little bit concerning, I guess, that the first kind of reaction is to drop a bomb on ISIS territories.
One of the topics that I'm been particularly concerned about came about with the bombing of Syria. I took real issue with it. I understand that it's a human rights issue. Chemical weapon attacks on civilians is terrible and it's never good. But the president had no legal authority to bomb a sovereign nation's military base. And that's something that really concerned me, that a snap decision like that, especially with all the ridiculous stories around how the decision was made and carried out, that's something that really concerns me. And it kind of follows a pattern of the executive office really taking liberties with their office, and it's something that I'm particularly concerned with.
So you heard it right there. We asked a bunch of different students, and a lot of their responses were consisting around Syria and some of those events that were currently happening there. So we really decided to pick this topic just to clear up some of the confusions that students have. And to really understand the Syrian debacle, you have to kind of learn a little bit about the history and about who al-Assad is. A lot of the reasons why al-Assad is such a controversial person is because he actually wasn't supposed to be the leader of Syria at the moment. His father actually was used to be the leader of Syria and was training actually Assad's brother to be the leader. Something happened with Assad's brother and he actually passed away, so then the current Bashar al-Assad had to come in and be the leader of Syria. He did a lot of questionable decisions and sometimes a lot of things in the torture and things like that. A lot of the population of Syria was not happy with, and then eventually that led to a lot of the demonstrations and a lot of the problems that you see now. The big issue that you see now currently with the specific topic that we're talking about is the chemical weapons that the Assad government allegedly used on their own citizens. Now with that comes the action that the United States took upon them. One of the big actions that people know about is the MOAB, the mother of all bombs. What the title actually is the Massive Ordnance Air Blast. Now, this is a bomb that a lot of media sources compared to being a nuclear weapon, because technically it is the strongest non-nuclear bomb, but the little aspect of controversy there is that that comparison is really not a fair comparison. Because even though it is the strongest bomb that is non-nuclear, the difference in the amount of the equivalent TNT that the explosions create are vastly different. Tons of TNT compared to kilotons of TNT, which creates a blast that is unanimously different. Now, so when you're talking about why America did this, and if you're thinking of if it is okay or not, a big reason why this decision was made is because of a statement that Obama made in his presidency, saying that there was a red line drawn in the actions of the Assad government, and one of the big red lines was chemical weapons. So with this being said, the precedent set by our last president, having the chemical weapons be used on their own citizens, was part of that red line and contributed to the action of dropping that bomb. So that also just comes down to if you think that America should be a part of the world police, so to say, and should be involved in some of those international foreign policies, but that is up for you to decide. And that is what we have on Syria. But hey, let's go back and check out what some of the other students have to say and what some of those concerns that they had are.
The United Airlines scandal, I thought it was really disturbing, and it kind of makes me not want to be with United Airlines when I go on flights, because I would never want to be treated like that. So it's something that I've kind of been following and keeping up with, and just seeing how the airline has been responding to the whole scandal that's been going on.
The shirt is open because at United Airlines, they like to keep things pretty wide open, but not typically in this certain scenario. So the issue that she had with that is, if you guys are not aware, there was a passenger of a United Airlines flight, a doctor actually, that when they came up to him and they said, unfortunately, we have a United Airlines faculty member that is going to need your seat. So the doctor himself said, I'm sorry, I have patients to get to. I'm not going to give up my seat. I paid for this and I need to get to my destination. So after a few exchanges, and they knew that the passenger was not going to give up his seat, United Airlines faculty and actual staff members physically removed the man from his seat and dragged him off the airplane, resulting in various types of bodily injuries and harm. So a big reason that people have a controversy with this is, number one, because they obviously physically removed him and caused him actual pain instead of talking through the situation, maybe convincing him to give up his seat. And a big conflict that a lot of people have is the precedent of other situations and how that they have occurred. There's been other people that have been requested to give up their seat and they've received thousands of dollars in return for giving up that seat, whereas this specific person was forced physically and also harmed, let alone not even thinking about the conflict that his patients might have with not being able to receive the care from their doctor.
I've given up my seat before, I know, and it was fine. I got money for it. It
Yeah.
wasn't that big of a deal, you know. Luckily, I had nothing going on. But I'm actually very surprised that the other patrons on the flight, that nobody volunteered after this situation was going on.
Nobody said
Isn't
that
that
I
a
will
little
give up my seat.
Yeah,
if, like,
please
I'm
don't drag
offered
anybody
to,
off. You know,
like,
it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
That's fine. I will, you know, I'll give up my
It's
seat.
not
It's
worth
okay.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
Now it's caused this big thing. So it was very, very surprising.
A little bit of that standby effect where you see things happening, it's not happening to you, so I'm going to stay in my seat and not worry about anyone else. But hey, maybe you can take some of the things that you learned here to make up your own opinion about United Airlines. But hey, let's keep going. Let's see what else students are really worrying about on campus.
As current events go, I'm really interested in what's going on kind of in the Korean Peninsula and North Korea. I think it's a very interesting place in the world, especially because of how anti-US the sentiment is there. And lately we've seen like a failed missile test and stuff like that that's really like amping up tensions there. I know that Mike Pence was over just 100 feet from the DMZ, which is the border between North and South Korea. So I think that's certainly a place that we're going to want to keep our eyes on in the future.
Now, when you're talking about North Korea, a big thing that you have to understand is a little bit about North Korea as a society, because they have two big pillars of their society that really helps you understand why they're such a big concern. Number one is something that's called juche, and it's a topic that they have that basically relies on the fact that essentially they have a outward appearance to the rest of the world that they are crazy and they are willing to do very outlandish acts and to scare the world into thinking that they shouldn't be messed with. Things like repeated nuclear tests after they've been sanctioned and told repeatedly not to. And another large aspect of their culture is their reliance on self-reliance. So they say that they do not want to take any help from the surrounding world. They want to do it themselves. So knowing that they are willing to do those crazy acts and doing those things that really say, hey, we're North Korea, we are a power no matter what you think, combined with their fact that they don't want help from the rest of the world. They don't want assistance from outside sources. They want to do it themselves. So knowing that really can maybe show you why not only are we really taking North Korea's situation seriously, but we also know that isn't something that we can go with force and start dropping a bunch of bombs and start trying to affect them, because yes, maybe it might not affect us over in the US, but over in South Korea they're a lot closer and it can really affect them. How do you guys think about that?
I agree. I think any countries or citizens in close proximity to North Korea need to be taken into account. We need to consider other human life other than just our own, just because North Korea might not have the power to affect us and, backlash at the USA specifically. They will backlash somehow, I know that, I believe it was today, we were issued a threat, and the president, or is it the dictator of North Korea, said that if Trump tries to make any threats, he's going to retaliate. So it was actually vocalized.
Something to be aware of when you try to formulate your opinions. Thinking about. So let's continue on and see what else we can talk about with students.
The issues that I'm really interested in is in Turkey they recently had a referendum where they basically voted away their democracy, and I think that's going to be something that's really difficult for us as a country moving forward because they're considered one of our allies, they're part of NATO, and the fact that they've kind of gone away now from a democratic system more to like a dictatorship kinda is unsettling to say the least.
And there you have it. That very last opinion that we had, a topic that we'd like to talk about, is the referendum in Turkey. Now, this was a pretty interesting one because at first it was known that the Turkish people did make this vote. So 51.4% of people said yes to this vote, and the vote was basically getting away from their parliamentary system of government and getting more towards an executive presidency. So that would give their leader a lot more power and a lot more far-reaching power to make decisions without any checks and balances like our current state that we have over in our system. So now the big controversy in this is what all of the voters that said no. The voters that said no are saying that they were subject to voter intimidation, they were subject to the media corruption, as well as actual violence that was subjecting them to increasing votes saying yes. So with those known, it is a pretty interesting thing because the vote was plain and simple. 51% did say yes, but you have to think about all the different reasons that people did say yes. Things like their state-run media campaign, knowing that the actual government does have a lot of say in what the media covers, which can also influence the opinions of the people. So maybe look into a little bit that and formulate your opinions and make sure you're nice and informed when thinking about those types of things. So hey, we're not quite done yet. We've got a lot of national news to cover, but first you should check out what the Comm Club has to say for you guys.
Turning to national news, the 10-day manhunt for Joseph Jakubowski is finally over after a farmer from Reedsburg, Wisconsin, found Jakubowski camping under his tarp on his property. Now, Jakubowski was on the run after he burglarized a bunch of gun stores. He made anti-religious and anti-government statements. Officials say that he broke into the gun shop, stole the 18 weapons, other items. He did set his vehicle on fire, and then he also wrote a 161-page manifesto to Donald Trump, posing multiple threats. Jeff Gorn was actually the one that found him in the Viola County. He had an hour-long conversation with him, actually. Jakubowski told him that he was eating grass. He's been on the run for about 10 days. Now, he didn't say any of these things that he was wanted, so Gorn went back after having this very normal conversation with him and simply called the police and said, "Hey, are you looking for anybody? There's this strange guy on my property." And immediately they knew it was him. They had described him and stuff. The arrest, they did make an arrest. It was about 8 hours long. Nobody was hurt. It wasn't any issues, and Jakubowski actually gave up from exhaustion just from being on the run for 10 days. He is in the Rock County Jail facing, state and federal charges. And he is actually appearing in court later today.
Wow.
Have you guys heard anything about?
Yeah. Like something out of a movie.
Right. You don't
really
think things like this happen, but
I know it completely took over all the, I mean, it was national, it was local, because he's from this area, you know, basically, you know, Midwest, Wisconsin, Minnesota, that kind of stuff, you know, so it was everywhere here. I saw updates coming in like every couple hours. If there was any tips about him, if they had heard anything about like, you know, why he was doing what he was doing, different news about his manifesto that had been released. So much stuff. And I feel like there's a lot to this story that we probably still don't even know yet.
Yeah, haven't heard from him much. I know he was telling Gorn, the guy that had found him on his property, he just wanted to be off the grid, was a statement that he kept saying. He just wants to be off the grid, you know, done. But I feel like in today's day and age, if you know, rob a gun store and write something to the president, they don't take that very lightly. So wanting to be off the grid, maybe you should have just ran away instead of doing
I feel like if you want to be off the grid,
like
why are you making such a scene?
Right.
Just leave.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I would not like to be the person that had that conversation with him and found out who he was
Well, what
talking
was
to.
funny was that he didn't even know he was wanted. He didn't know that they were looking for him. He knew nothing about him. So I feel almost it's probably a better situation that it happened that way, that he didn't know who he was, rather than knowing who he was, knowing there was actually a $20,000 reward out for his arrest, knowing that he just thought he was someone random, you know. That was probably better, knowing that he just calmly went back, called the police and said, hey, I got this guy in my yard.
Quite the interesting story. I'm glad that everybody is safe. Moving on. Viewers that had their hopes set on a border wall between the United States and Mexico might have to wait a little bit longer to get their hopes. Now, mixed signals have been sent by the Trump aide regarding this border wall and the commander-in-chief's commitment to this plan, actually. He started out very adamant to it, but now things seem to be saying that he might be flip-flopping on his opinions a little bit. Now, due to the highly controversial aspect of this topic, the White House signaled that the president will not insist on including the funds for the border wall in this next budget proposal, but possibly might be putting it forward in future budget proposals. Statements have showed that the reasons for this was to avoid a government shutdown in hopes that without this, Trump's budget proposal can be approved. But it is noted that Donald Trump does plan to propose a federal funding for the border wall as it stands right now. Now, this is a topic that I find very interesting because to a lot of people's knowledge that they do not know, there's a border wall in many different spots on the border between the U.S. and Mexico. So it's funny that this is still a topic that is around, because I actually, when I was abroad, I met some friends that live on the border of the Texas and Mexico border, and there's walls all over the place. So I think that's very interesting that this is still a topic.
Sure, I would agree. You know, there is a border in several places, and I mean, obviously our government and the government of Mexico built the border wall, you know, ages. I don't even know when it was built, but it's been there. So I don't understand why people are so concerned about there not being a border wall when there is a border wall. Who really knows? All right. Well, now we're moving back up north to New York State. New York Girl Scout Troop 6000 is 25 members strong and growing. This troop is based at the Sleep Inn Inn, a 10-story homeless shelter in New York. Each member of Troop 6000 is a homeless girl. The troop was created by Giselle Burgess, a homeless mother of 5 who found shelter at the Sleep Inn. Burgess is now the troop leader after approaching the head of the shelter asking to help her create a troop. The Girl Scouts of Greater New York cover the cost for the members of Troop 6000, including membership fees, monthly dues, and kits for badges, pins, uniforms, and vests. Burgess says the troop currently has girls from ages 5 to 14. She hopes to provide the girls with positive female role models, opportunities for higher education, careers, and lifelong friendship. Through the work of the troop, Burgess aims to end the stigma against homelessness as well as bring awareness to their situations. I think it's very admirable that they're providing these girls with, you know, opportunity and hope, and they're not just saying, you know, that just because you're in the situation right now, it doesn't mean that you don't have a chance in life, you know. And sometimes I mean, I don't know from experience or anything, but I can imagine it would be very difficult to kind of, you know, see a sort of light at the end of the tunnel, you know, being in that position. I can't even fathom being a young girl and being, you know, stuck in a position like that. But it's nice that they have, you know, a sort of camaraderie with other girls. And, you know, that shelter and the article that I read about it said that the troop is more than just this one shelter. It expands over several of them. And so the girls say that if you see it on the group with, or on the girl with, you know, her Troop 6000 badge on, you're like, oh, hey, that's my friend, you know, like we have each other's backs. And they kind of, one of the girls that was interviewed was actually Burgess's daughter, And she defined the group as a sort of pack. And she's like, when one girl is down, we go and help her out because we understand.
Oh, I like that.
So
That's great. That's
it was really
heartwarming.
cute.
And from what I've learned in my psychology classes that I've taken, I've learned a little bit about what's called learned helplessness.
Yes.
And to have something like this in their lives that just shows them that what they're capable of, and that they shouldn't identify as a homeless person because they're capable of so much more. I think that can be just leagues of help. That's awesome.
It really is. It really is. All right. Well, I think that's all the time we have for Almost Live in LAX this week, huh?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in to the second episode for 2017 of Almost Live in LAX, and we hope you learned a little bit and you go out and you think about issues happening around the world. Hope to see you next time.